Hey, I'm Reed. This is Krylan Publishing, and I'm getting surgery tomorrow. I'm getting a pretty fast and aggressive skin cancer getting chopped out. It's going to be pretty interesting. So it's got me thinking about healing and healing magic in our games in D&D. So healers are really, really important to heroic fantasy. So you might take, say, half your health or your hit points in any given fight, right? So does that mean you can only have 2 fights a session? No, because magical healing. And slapping on a band-aid onto an axe wound, it doesn't feel right, like if you've gotten half your face dissolved off by a green slime or a dragon's chewed on your lungs or something, you can't then just go like, oh well, like he did a healing skill check on me and now I'm up and running. That doesn't seem real. That doesn't seem, what's the word, verisimilitudeness. So healing magic comes along to the rescue and someone goes like, rise again, and bang, healing magic feels very much a part of the milieu of, I just took a huge amount of damage, but now I'm up and I can keep on fighting. Bibbidi bobbidi, you are healed. That's healing magic. But it's a game changer for any kind of human society, and I think that we should talk about that more when we talk about healing magic as a world-building device. We'll never be able to bring the dead back. We'll probably never be able to regrow limbs, and some diseases just cannot be cured. And even if we do cure them, by the time we've gotten to them, they've already done a lot of the damage anyway, and we can't cure certain genetic conditions. Some disabilities can never be made right, and speaking as a disabled person, yeah, I'd love to be bloody cured. So, world building is really, really informed by how we would look after our sick and what options we would have for our sick and for our born differently abled and all the rest of it. It just implies so much about the world that we've built. Now, I hate clerics having an opinion on healing magic. I just think it's a dumb idea. It almost forces you to take a cleric in any party. So you're obliged into world building around this idea because, 9 times out of 10, your players are going to say, okay, who is playing the cleric? And that forces you as a player to always be thinking about, if you've got 5 places at the table, you've really only got 4 PC rolls because one of them has to be a cleric, and at the very pinch, like a healing pally. And so already that's a problem. But secondly is that magic traditions all around the world, from Navajo hand tremblers to Israelite Baal Shems to Wiccan crystal wielders, healing is a huge part of nearly every arcane and magic tradition all around the world, from healing shamans to nuns who run hospitals and all the rest of it. Even Knights Hospitaller, where do we get that name from? Even they have mystical traditions of healing. The Cup of Christ heals you, and it's the most magical item in the Western world. So I tend to not focus on clerical magic being the only source of healing. I give mages cure wounds and cure disease, stuff like that. I think that it really does. It makes playing a mage more interesting because you do have that sort of ancient lore, and you can do the whole sort of Ged from the Wizard of Earthsea of knowing about herbs and knowing about what the wise know. Like, well, if you use this leaf, it will cure his liver, that sort of stuff. So I think that's important, and it gives you another way to be a mage. I think that it really does free up a lot of conceptual space as well. You don't have to have gods if you've got healing magic that is not necessarily controlled by clerics. Got tired of being on camera, so the footage I put on now is from a game I wrote. Anyway, secondly, I think that we really need to talk about what healing magic looks like. Do you dance a healing dance to work that spell? Do you lay on hands? Is it a ghastly necromantic ritual where you sew up wounds muttering in Dedic, the language of the liches? Do you channel soft white light? If you're regrowing flesh, is it a moment of pure bliss where all the grace of the world pours into your body? Or is it a minute's agony as flesh and bone is horribly force-grown where you have to hold the screaming patient down? I think that touches like this really do make a PC. They really do help you make your healer much more than just an ambulance, much more than just the guy who stands back from combat and goes, "You're back." And I think you want to really think about what PC's healing abilities look like. A forge god might want you to hold shattered bones together and channel red-hot fire from the cosmic anvil into the body. A war god might want you to leave huge great stars and live, but remember your failure. A love god you might have to kiss the wounds of the patient to show them that you love them and that you accept their hideously now mangled body. A god of evil might have their healer drinking the wounded person's blood as tribute. She must taste you to heal you. And then, think about what healing is worth to you. What is the price of a miracle? Do you have to take the life energy from somewhere? Do you have to take it from somewhere and put it into another person's body? That might be actually a fun way to differentiate divine and arcane magic. An arcanist takes energy from maybe from themselves, or maybe from plants, or maybe from other people or animals, and they transfer that into the person who they're trying to heal. Energy must always be replaced, whereas a cleric, the reason why clerics have such a monopoly on healing is that that energy comes from their god. You take it down from heaven or you bring it up from hell, so you're not having to move it around the world, and you're not having to sacrifice people's lives for it, unless you want to. But I mean, that'd be a good reason for a necromancer to get up to their necromancy stuff. I'm trying to bring someone back from the dead. I gotta kill a bunch of people. And what is the cost? What is the cost of healing spiritually and financially and all the rest of it? Because I don't know about you, but I'm about to pay a bunch of money to a doctor to really chop my hand up. I'm going to be pretty happy if it works out and he takes the cancer out of me tomorrow, but would I serve his god if he told me to? Would I tell my kid, go on, kid, who doesn't really exist, but go on, kid, go and work in the doctor priest's temple? Would I kill someone if he told me to? I'm disabled. I'm sick. I have been for a long, long time. I understand why they make rash decisions. I understand the desperation of being sick. It would be very easy if I had healing abilities, therefore, not just to get rich, but to gain influence with people. If I wanted to, and I could heal a rich man's son, I could gain influence at his court, say like how Rasputin did. And that, well, I mean, it wouldn't be very ethical, but that would be a pretty interesting take on a villain or a kind of conniving PC. And then there is the greatest miracle of all, resurrection. What's it mean in your society that death is not the end? Do the rich have previous arrangements with great magicians to bring them back if they die? What's your legal status if you do die and your kids inherit your wealth and you come back? Does it come back to you, or you're out of luck? If your husband remarries, is that legal for him to do that if you come back? And what's their religious status? I mean, you could have met Jesus. You could have shoved Jesus. You could have played cards with Jesus. That would seem to me to be a pretty big deal in a religious society. And if the gods are bringing dudes back to life, you're probably living in a religious society. Or would you have broken the law of death? Would this be like a once-off thing? Would this be something new to the campaign world? Silly, silly PC. Or would you just be considered a blasphemous mistake and necromantic horror, even though you're actually not, and there are necromantic horrors? What's coming back from the dead mean to your campaign world? Maybe it's actually nothing. Maybe it's just not important at all. And that brings us to the final point. How widespread is healing magic? Because this is an important part of world building, especially if you're just playing in D&D, but it's important for any kind of fantasy game. Do you just go into town and see the cleric like you would a GP at the local medical center? Or is the cleric who can heal a living saint and is incredibly rare, moving from town to town, following wars or plagues, is sought out by the desperate and the mad, a lonely hermit with his incredible power? I think it depends on your setting, obviously. If you're going for a high fantasy feel where it's all dragon nations and floating citadels, yeah, sure, healing magic's all over the place, not a big deal. If you're in a kind of, gross medieval setting where it's just everyone's just coughing and it's all depressing all the time and Jabberwocky sort of feel, yeah, no, you don't want to have clerical magic at all. It's a big deal. Maybe powerful factions control the access to healing magic. A church, for example, or a guild of medicalers, whatever you want to call them, doctors, healing priests, whatever. Think about our current world right now. If doctors refused to help people unless they got paid a huge amount of money, wait, that's not right. Anyway, if doctors refused to help people unless they were given political control of certain elements of their lives in our society, well, that's what it would look like. I think you would have this enormous influence over society that was only done by healing magicians and healing magic. And a good hook for a PC, therefore, would be maybe you exist outside this huge cartel. Maybe you're a threat to the inherited power of these healing guilds. Maybe you're just like Dragonlance, where you were in fact the only person in the world who can do any kind of healing magic. Wouldn't you be a catch for any kind of PC party? You would in fact make a PC party really very, very hard for any other kind of opponent to deal with, because you're the only crew that can get healed in the middle of a fight. What happens if you want to rule the party? Would you be the only person who is in charge? Because you're like, well, you know, do you want to get healed? Then you got to give me 90% of the treasure. Or would it be a case of, yeah, guys, I'm a healer. I don't want to fight brigands and dragons all day. And then the party turns to you and says, it would be a very bad idea, Jesse Pinkman, if you decided not to perform your function. We wouldn't like that at all. So healing magic. Small, not a lot of people think about it, but I think that in the right hands, it can be an absolute game changer of a campaign. I'm going to be fine, by the way, just in case you're wondering. It's a pretty standard routine, and I'm Australian, so you know everyone's gotten 1,000 skin cancers anyway. And I hope you like this video. It's just a quick one. Like, share, subscribe. You know the stuff. Tell your friends. I'll see you soon.